just asked me, she's like, you should get a picture. I'm like, sure.
Ashley does all the work behind the scenes for Chase.
Together.
All right.
After the event, we'll sweep you out so you can really take the tour. But I know Bill is going to be available for questions afterwards. So people Q&A to us. And ask more questions, just say Bill is sticking around. And you can take questions. Bill, you're Bill.
You're doing the 10:30 is my voting.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're really excited about this opportunity to bring two great leaders to Denver Startup Week. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce them, but I want to just take a moment to give you a little background on Denver Startup Week and just take a moment to acknowledge all of the great work that's been done. I want to start by acknowledging one of my co-founders here, Eric Matizik. I should have added, I'm Tammy Dorr, the CEO of the Downtown Denver Partnership. Thank you. I want to acknowledge Kate Barton, who's the executive leader of Denver Startup Week. She's there. And Rye Finnegan, who's the manager, and he is floating around. So with that said, Denver Startup Week is produced by the community, for the community, with the community. Everything is 100% free. It is free because we as a community believe in give back first. And that means our companies, those who have made it, whether people give time, energy, money, they are the ones that are making this happen. I share it with you because this gift to you of Startup Week is your gift to give back when you are ready and able to do so. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. We started 6 years ago, 3,700 attendees. Today we're at over 18,400 attendees. And we're still keeping it to the true platform of keeping it free so that we can give back. Special thanks to our title sponsors, WeWork, Aging 2.0, Comcast, the Downtown Denver Partnership, and Chase for Business. Now, there's one more thing I want to add. When we had a vision for Denver Startup Week, it was just a bit of an idea. And when we had just a bit of an idea for the Commons on Champa, there was one company, that stepped forward and said, yeah, I'm not sure where it's all going, and I don't really know how big it's going to get, and I haven't totally seen your plan yet, but we believe in you, and we are going to do this together. And you know who that was? Chase. So on behalf of the Downtown Denver Partnership and Chris Jensen, our board member from Chase, I'd like to ask all of us to, on the count of three, just say, thank you, Chase. So 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Chase.
All right. So now, let's get down to business. I'm really excited today to bring you Linda McMahon, the 25th administrator of the Small Business Administration for the United States. And we had a very brief moment to talk earlier, and I just asked her, what is it that you would, what type of advice would you give somebody starting a company? And she said something that I know is near and dear to many of us. Do what you love. And it's clear through her work and her leadership that she's doing something that she loves, committing to the growth of small businesses and companies throughout the United States. Please welcome Linda McMahon. Andrew Cressy is here joining us. He is the CEO of Chase for Business. All right, so I know, we have to have the tagline. So Andrew was referencing that he is inspired by the energy that all of our entrepreneurs and innovators bring to the work that they do and that they bring to their communities. And there's no doubt that in his leadership at Chase for Business, that he brings that to his teams and his employees, but most importantly, to all of the clients and customers that they service. Please welcome Andrew. Thank you. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to these awesome leaders. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. I first have to tell you, I talked about the energy, and I've been in this small business at Chase for the last 6 months, and the energy that you see, both at the 14,000 people at Chase that support small businesses everywhere, as well as the 4 million customers that we have in small business, as well as these startup weeks. In my second week on the job, I was at Dallas Startup Week, but everybody told me, wait till Denver, wait till Denver. And so getting here and seeing this is epic. There's 18,000 registrants this week alone. I mean, it's phenomenal. And startups and entrepreneurism, that's what fuels the US. And this is not about Chase for Business. This is not about Chase. This is about the United States. And everything that you're doing is fueling the growth of our communities. It's creating jobs. It's doing great things. And so I first have to give a big hand to Denver for coming out and supporting the entrepreneurs. So thank you very much. Now, I won't waste any more time because you're all here to see Administrator McMahon. So to get started, you've been on the job for a little over 9 months?
Is it 9 months?
It's flown by.
February 14th, Valentine's Day, I was sworn in as the 25th administrator.
Now, I've met the administrator once before, and I got to tell you, I walked out of that room and people tell me I have energy, you have 10 times that energy. She has 100 times the energy to help all of you. She is an entrepreneur. She was a small business owner. She failed. She started over. She did it again, built a huge company. So we'll get into that later. But as head of the SBA, some people here may not know what the Small Business Administration is and what it does. Can you give a little background?
Absolutely. You know, when I was about into my second week on the job, I realized something that I've continued to realize more and more as I travel the country, that SBA is one of the best kept secrets in the country. Small Business Administration is, first of all, most of the time thought about as loans. And while that's incredibly important, providing entrepreneurs with access to capital, it is equally as important that we have mentorship, networking, time that a lot of you are spending maybe with mentors this week, or you're being mentors yourselves, because it is that counseling that really helps small businesses grow. You know, there are a lot of budding entrepreneurs who come into an SBA office or one of our SBDC resource partners or our women's business centers or our SCORE chapters, all of which are providing their expertise for free, just as you're here at this conference as well. And I listen, you know, to what they have to say, and I think people really don't know what we do. They don't know that we offer all of these other services, that we have many different kinds of loans, that we have government contracting, that we have emerging leaders programs which are taught at our SBA offices and sometimes at our SBDC centers. And it's like a business course for entrepreneurs. It takes 7 months. And I've had so many budding entrepreneurs tell me, or seasoned entrepreneurs ready to take their business to the next level, that they would not have been successful except for the Emerging Leaders Program. So SBA does so many things all over the country. Yes, access to capital is critical for businesses, but in addition, you know, to that, it's the mentoring and the networking. And the other side of SBA, which hardly anyone is aware of, is what we do in times of disaster. May 18th, there was a hailstorm. How many of you know about the hailstorm here? And it just knocked out businesses, you know, one whole section just gone. I signed that disaster resolution, first asked for, you know, by your governor. But then we're looking at what's going on now in Houston, Florida. I was with Governor Scott yesterday, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, because SBA actually comes in to be part of the long-term economic recovery from disaster. We're not there on the ground to find shelter or to provide food and water. We come in right behind FEMA, often co-located with FEMA, to make sure that businesses and homes can get back up and running. It's the only time that SBA actually makes the loans ourselves instead of guaranteeing loans from banks. So it's an all-encompassing agency. I learn every day something new. I think we're bringing a lot to the table with the energy and just the continuing messaging that I'm doing as I travel to each of our 68 district offices around the country, because I have business roundtables, I meet with elected officials, I meet with our SBA office heads, tour our offices and get feedback from them. And I'm having a ball doing it, but it's a huge, huge job.
Speaking of huge jobs, so you probably could have done anything, and you took on the role of administrator. Why was that important to you?
It was very interesting. I got a call one day from President-elect Trump, whom I have known for probably 20 to 25 years, and he asked me to come to Trump Tower, and I came in and he wanted to talk to me about taking on this responsibility. We talked about a couple of things, but this he thought was incredibly in my wheelhouse, and would I consider doing it? He said, look, I want somebody from the business world. I want somebody who's built a business, who's had some ups and downs, who can walk the walk and talk the talk, and knows what it means to have access to capital and manage cash flow, and what the debt service means, and what the regulatory environment means. And he said, will you consider doing it? So before I left his office that day, I had said yes, and a little hard to say no to President-elect of the United States, especially an old friend. And as I was leaving his office, he put his hands like that on my shoulders, and he looked me square in the eye, and he said, I just have one request. And I said, by that time I was saying, yes, sir. And he said, just do a good job. And I told him I would do my best, and if that wasn't good enough, I would gladly step out of the way for someone who could. So far, we're okay.
You're doing a great job from what we see, so thank you. So, some people have probably heard of WWF or WWE, but you started out in 1980 with Titan Sports, and even prior to that, you had other companies. Can you talk about the path of an entrepreneur and a startup, and all the both struggles and the things you would have wanted and would have wanted to know then versus today, and just talk about that experience for you?
Well, I wish I'd known about SBA then, because it would have been very helpful to have gotten a lot of that counseling. Vince and I were young. My husband, Vince McMahon, and I started our company. And we were both young, and it was kind of learn as you go. But if there was one thing we clearly had about our business, it was that passion and that love for what we were doing, because the risks that you take as an entrepreneur, and in our particular business, the promotion of a live event, which is where almost all of the revenue came from at that particular time, was the live event. I mean, you market, you promote, you put tickets on sale, and you cross your fingers and hope a lot of people come through that door, and that you don't find people disguised as empty seats at your arenas, because that's not a good thing. But the things that I learned along the way that became most valuable was cash management, because that ebb and flow of cash really knocks down so many startup companies. They've got enough money for a month or 2 months, and they might not need, they know they need enough for a couple of years, because they want to grow their staff and they have all these ideas they want to do, but they don't understand the capital requirement for it, or the amount of time it's going to take away time that they might otherwise have been doing something else, because it's 24/7 when you start a business. Because if you're committed to it and you're going to be there and you're going to run it, you're often the janitor and the CEO and the accountant, the HR person, everything rolled into one. And so it takes an incredible commitment. And I think that what I learned most of all was, you know that you have to be a risk taker if you're an entrepreneur. Somehow it ought to be in the definition or part of the word. But you have to know how to manage your downside. Because if you don't, that's when you get into trouble. And Vince and I once went bankrupt. It was a poor judgment with some partners that we engaged with, not for the wrestling business, but for another business. And we had personally signed to guarantee some of the loans. And they went south, and we were left with the loans. And we tried to pay them all off, and we eventually had to declare bankruptcy. And we lost everything. Our house was auctioned off. My car was repossessed in the driveway. I was 7 months pregnant with our second child, and so we've been there. So when you look at me and say, wow, what a great success, World Wrestling Entertainment, Yep, it has been, but there have been a lot of ups and downs along the way. But I've never, ever walked through the door at WWE when I didn't get excited and think I was not there to do a job, that it was just my passion. And I've heard Vince often say, I don't think I ever went to work a day in my life. It's just I went to do what I love to do. So if you're going to put that time, effort, energy, and treasure into it, be sure it's what you want to do.
I love reading the stories about you because you said as an entrepreneur you have to be willing to do anything, and you don't give yourself enough credit, but you were the general counsel. You had worked at a big law firm, Covington and Burling.
I'm not a lawyer. I was a paralegal there. I learned a lot, but I was not a lawyer.
But you acted as general counsel. In the early days, you were serving meatball sandwiches at your events, right? I mean, you've done everything, and you have to do everything.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, this grosses some people out when I tell this story, so you'll all love it. John Denver was coming to a facility that Vince and I owned on Cape Cod called the Cape Cod Coliseum. So we got the rider. If any of you have ever been in the entertainment business, you get the rider that comes along with the contract. That's everything that performer demands. Now, half the time the performers never demanded those things. It's the people around them that want to make sure they're comfortable, they're taken care of. It's a little bit like a political campaign. And so John Denver was coming, and I took a look at the dressing room where he was going to be. The Cape Cod Coliseum was a cinder block ice house in the middle of Cape Cod. And so I called in our janitorial person who came in, and I said, Bob, you really have to take care of all these toilets and stuff. And he goes, oh, no, I've already been in here and cleaned them. And I said, no, you have not. I got rubber gloves, got the cleaning stuff, showed him what I meant by having things clean and shiny and sparkly. I didn't have that problem ever with him again.
You touched a little bit on failure, and you meet any great entrepreneur running a small business or a big business. They say you have to accept failure, and then you have to be resilient and bounce back. How did you bounce back from that?
I've often said it's not how you fall, but it's how you get up. And that's incredibly important because when you get really knocked down and you've really lost everything and you're down to really bare bones, you really do take a fresh look at what's important to you. And Vince and I both knew that the faster we could put one foot in front of the other again, that we would just keep going. And the wrestling industry at that business at that particular point was just really kind of starting to take off. So we did have that bit of lady luck on our side to be able to quickly put those events back in motion and to start having more successes than failures and rebuild. But it really was looking at, we couldn't fire anybody, it was him and me. And we seemed to be going together pretty well. As a matter of fact, we just celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary.
I heard that. Congratulations.
I was only 5 when we got married.
And your 49th birthday is coming up next week, so happy birthday. Congratulations on that, too. So you've been on the road, the Ignite Tour, I love it. Great name. And every time I hear about you, you're somewhere else. Seattle, Florida, you're going to Puerto Rico, you're off to Idaho right after this. What have you been hearing from small businesses on the road during the Ignite Tour?
Well, the Ignite Tour came out of kind of how we were going to relaunch SBA and touch all of our district offices, because for those of you who start businesses and then you're so fortunate that you open up that next location, the next location, remember how important it is to stay in touch with the people there. So I made it a commitment on my part to tour all 68 of our SBA district offices. So we're off to a good start. But when I'm there, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll have business roundtables. We'll bring in local businesses, hear what they have to say, what's on their mind, what are their pressure points. And it really is what you've been hearing, in the news, what the president's been talking about. It's tax reform, it's regulatory reform, it's the high cost of health care. And more, everywhere I go, I am hearing about the lack of a skilled workforce. And that's not just in the technology sector, which this is an area where you will hear a lot about that, but it is not having enough plumbers and carpenters and electricians, those basic trades and skills that we need that, we have to sort of change the paradigm of our thoughts about education. It's not always a four-year college degree or more. Now, don't take me wrong. I want every student who wants to go to college and is capable of going to college to be there and to succeed and get their diploma and go on to graduate school. But there are so many who don't really succeed in that environment, who could be out learning a skill or a trade and literally and start their own business. I was with the president when he signed the executive order committing $100 million to the apprentice and internship program to get more students involved in businesses and in trade, so that when they graduate from high school starting or community college, they have a pathway to go into business. And the businesses themselves have already trained those people who are coming out because they've been helpful with creating the curriculum. So I hear all of those things, and I think it's really important that we help focus on where's going to be that next group coming in. I was at a manufacturing company in Columbus, and the owner told me, he said, I have some folks who've been here for 37 years. He said, and that's a wonderful testament to the kind of company we have, the growth that we've had. He said, but I don't have that next generation coming in. He said, and I don't know where to go to find them. And that's an issue. It's really something we have to address.
Yeah, the unemployment rate of people graduating from college today is absolutely unacceptable. And I know we've been committed $325 million over the next 5 years for new skills at work. And it's training people. College is not producing enough talented people to go out and get jobs and go into the workforce. So whatever that job is that people need, you have to invest in that. Talking about that, you have a passion for helping the underserved. At Chase, we have Small Business Forward, which is committed $75 million over the next 3 years to support minority-owned businesses, women's-owned businesses, veterans-owned businesses. What do you think we need to do to support more underserved businesses? I know just this year and here in Denver is Mikasa, which the SBA recognized is one of the best women's business centers in the country. What can the SBA do? What can the SBA do to support underrepresented minority business owners?
Well, that's one of the things that you'll find in our district offices or in our resource partner offices, as well as we have programs for communities, Community Advantage, where loans are made available to entrepreneurs who are startups who really are in underserved markets. And we also have, our hub zones that are, the reason they were established was to go into an underserved community. But there are requirements. There are requirements that I think it's 33 to 35%, and Bill Manger, who will be here afterwards, can stand up, Bill, be recognized so they know who you are. Bill Manger is the head of our Access Capital, our whole capital division at WBA, so he's the money guy. If you want to talk to anybody afterwards, go see Bill. So we do have those programs for underserved markets, and we even have a program we're trying to launch. I think we had our initial conversations with you were about Adopt a City and how can we go in and provide funds in there for startups. So lots of programs we have going on and working in conjunction with some of the Chase for Business groups. Not an intended plug. Just,
no,
just a fact.
Not at all. So when looking at CDFIs play a big role as well. And you talk about the public-private partnership that is required for any success. If here in Denver, when you look at the Commons on Champa and you look at the facility, and when I was talking to Tammy earlier, she said it started with the government giving $1 lease, and then you had not-for-profits coming in, and then you had businesses in the private sector coming in, and you see it today, and it's amazing. It's literally this birthplace of all new companies, which will generate jobs and just inspire communities. How do CDFIs play a role with the SBA and others?
Bill, when we leave, if you would spend a few minutes, and for those who would like to get a little bit more information, on that, because he's been working to help streamline some of those processes, and he'll have better information for you.
Good.
That's my
Absolutely.
way of throwing to Bill because I don't know the full answer to that. Did you understand that?
And if Bill's getting all the attention, I'll introduce Larry Conley because I throw everything Larry's way. So thank you both for all your great work in supporting small businesses. So we talked about some of the hardships for small business, cash flow you talked about. How do you manage cash flow? What are the products or the things available? And the JP Morgan Institute did a research study a year or so ago talking about the average cash on hand for a small business is 27 days. Here in Denver, it's only 25 days. How do you manage through that cash management process, which is so important?
Well, I think that is a lot of what you'll find in those resource partners that we use. Young entrepreneurs will come in there and ask that question. First of all, it's like, well, an entrepreneur is so full of their idea. They know it's going to work. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. This is how we're going to start. And by, year one, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be there. And then you say, okay, well, where's your business plan? What's your marketing plan? How are you going to do that? How much capital do you have? And it's like sometimes, they don't know all those answers. So that's why we have resources in place to really help do that. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage, but sometimes you have to look at a young entrepreneur and say, or someone who wants to scale their business, this is just not a good idea. It's not going to work the way you see it. You need to go back, rethink it, or go back and get some more resources or change, how you're thinking about it. And it's a little bit like telling a new mother her baby's ugly, because you just can't. That's a hard thing, to relate to an entrepreneur who's convinced it's going to work. But cash management, you have to look at. Well, we all know how a budget and cash flow works. This is what it is today, but this is what it's going to be if I don't get that account that I was hoping to get, or I'm going to have a plus up here, and you just have to make sure that you know what we all call, what is your nut? That's what your business expenses and everything is on a given day in a given month. Because if you don't know and understand that, you cannot plan for your cash.
Now, you talked a little bit about the natural disasters that have occurred, and it's a really important time now for the SBA to be there. If you look at, I think it was FEMA who put out the report that said that 40% of all small businesses that close because of a natural disaster never reopen. And we all know that small businesses create jobs, and so we're already struggling with small business formation. And when you see these disasters in Houston and Florida, we have to be there. The SBA has to be there. So what are some of the things that the SBA is thinking about doing or already doing for disaster recovery loans, et cetera?
Well, SBA is right behind FEMA on the ground, and we want to get businesses back up and running as soon as possible. So the disaster program is the only time that SBA actually lends the money itself. We are the bank. Normally, we rely on our partners, like Chase is one of our biggest lenders at SBA, and that's just a fact. It's really not a promotion for JP Morgan Chase. But for the only time that SBA is actually the bank is in disaster. And it's the only time that SBA ever provides money for home mortgages. And we have to get people back in their homes. We have to get them back at work. Because if you think about it, small businesses are the glue for the community. And as those businesses are revitalized, the community comes back together, people are buying goods and services, and the economy starts to turn again. So what SBA has done with its loan program is, for our disaster loans, we are deferring payment for a year. So no principal or interest payment for a year to help you get back on your feet to get settled. If you already have a disaster loan and you're in the area that we have declared a prior loan, we are also deferring that payment automatically unless you want to keep making your payments because you're in good shape with that and you want to continue. So we will go up to $2 million for business loans, for loss of plant, property, equipment, and operating capital and inventory. So it's a big boost. And also to homeowners, it's $200,000 for a new mortgage or to get back get your house under construction or whatever. And also $40,000 for renters who might have lost property. Now, the total amount you could get would be $2 million, whether it's house, business, and all combined. But this is something that SBA only does as part of its disaster program. But we are on the ground immediately. We are opening our business recovery centers. We are co-located with FEMA in their disaster centers. In fact, I was in one yesterday in Florida. It breaks your heart. I mean, your heart goes out to these people. They're women in line with little children. There are husbands who are like frantically going from place to place to try to get help to get back on their feet. And they're not looking for a handout. They just want to know what help is available for me so I can get started again. And that spirit in America is something that'll give you chills. And they are proud to be Americans, and they are proud to do what they do, and they're proud of the work they do. So we want to help them get back at it as soon as possible. And our lenders, we have asked them during this disaster process, because it's so massive, to also defer payments for our 7A, our 504 loans, and other loans that we have. So, and most everyone has come on board, and thank you, because it's really important, to have that cushion sometimes to just, get your heart lifted again, and so that you look at this and think not all is lost. And that's often what we provide at SBA offices. I had one district director tell me the other day that he's actually doing a little psychological training for some of his directors who have to deal with people who've lost so much.
Yeah, when you go into those communities, and there's always a silver lining to any disaster in life, and even we have 300 people in Houston, and one of our employees had closed on their first house. They saved up, got their first house, closed 2 weeks earlier, and it was destroyed by the hurricane, by Harvey. And the 30 employees went out and went into the house and helped them strip everything out of there. And you would think that would be horrible, but when you don't have insurance and all you need is to try and preserve your roof and your walls, and you can't do it unless someone comes in and takes the things out and prevents mold. And they were happier about that. They called me up and they were talking about it, and they sounded like they had just won the lottery. And I'm like, do you realize that you lost everything? They're like, no, my family and friends and everybody's still here. So it's great to see everybody getting down there and helping out. The one thing I
know in Puerto Rico, we weren't able to contact our SBA district office or any of the people there up until about 2 days ago, and we found out they were all okay. But we really didn't know at that point. Not only are they all okay, they're already out in the community trying to see how they can be helpful. And you're right, it's that community spirit, it's our humanitarian commitment. So we're grateful to each and every one of them.
The one thing I did want to point out, and Bill Menger, you have his name. I won't give you his email or phone number, but the Community Development Financial Institutions, the CDFIs, when the SBA or a traditional bank can't be there for you, there are other outlets. And whether it's the Colorado Enterprise Fund here in Denver or it's Axion, those are all great examples. And so we're here not to promote the SBA or to chase or anything. We're here to promote small business. So looking for all the different ways that hopefully you can get support as a small business owner is what we're trying to do. So for any of you who don't know what a CDFI is, please do the research. They do great things. Now, let's go to a little bit more entertaining session. We want to do some speed questions with you. And
I thought you wanted me to put you in a hold of some kind. I've got a mean hip toss. No matter how big you are.
The first time I met Administrator McMahon, I was gushing, and I said, "Can I get a photo with you?" And she said, "Sure." And there she was. She folded her arms, and when I showed my wife, she's like, she can kick your ass. And I said, "Yep, not the only woman who could." But when we're done with the speed round, we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, please get in line in the center aisle, and we want to make sure everybody has their questions answered. So we're going to do a little pepper. I think I've got 10 speed questions for you. And so, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Mountains or beach?
What?
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Ooh, you're in Colorado.
I'm not pandering to the audience. For me, it's beach.
This is why you make a horrible politician.
That's why I didn't get elected as senator in Connecticut.
You are honest. I love that. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Stone Cold Steve Austin for president 15 years from now?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Ah. What if you had to choose today?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Any guy that sprayed milk all over my husband in the ring is not about to get my endorsement for president.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
I don't do much karaoke. Singing in the shower, though, may be a whole different thing. Gosh, I can't think of one. I'll have to come back to that one.
Okay. Last book you've read?
I'm actually reading a book, and this will absolutely sound like I am pandering, but it's Where the Jobs Are. And it's an incredibly fascinating book. And it's not all that thick, and it's pretty interesting reading. I can't think of the author at the moment, but Where the Jobs Are. If you're an entrepreneur or you're doing business mentoring, it's a good one to pick up.
So even when you're relaxing, you're thinking about jobs and small business.
I tell you, I have so little time to read for pleasure, but I have become an absolute Vincent. I binge watch Game of Thrones, and we're like season 4, like the middle of the episodes. So, and we won't watch it unless we're watching it together. So weekends are Game of Thrones time.
The coffee or tea?
Tea.
Beer or wine?
Wine. Red.
Favorite sport or sports team? I was told you were a tomboy growing up.
Was a tomboy growing up. Denver Broncos.
You're a quick learner too.
So they tell me.
Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
We're doing all three. Twitter.
Okay. Do you see?
But if I want to communicate with my grandson, it's Instagram because that's all he looks at.
How many grandkids do you have?
6. 3 boys, 3 girls. My son has 3 boys. My daughter has 3 girls.
That's awesome. Anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
Thank God, no.
All right, we're going to turn it over to the audience for some questions.
Wait. Wasn't what was it? Bill Clinton was asked boxers or briefs?
Yep. Boxers. This is a lot of fun.
That's the only time he squirmed a little bit. Did you notice that?
I already had a sunburn. All right. Question.
Welcome. Is this on? Okay.